All right, so I want to go over some things with these turbo builds and stuff. I get a lot of questions from people about these things. Everybody's like, well, "How does it run and drive, and what's the reliability?" And you know, I don't understand how people think that adding a turbo affects the drivability. Like, is the car going to drive differently? I don't understand what they think it changes. In my opinion, you can run a mild camshaft, have the turbo, make great power, still get decent fuel mileage, and once you roll in it, then the power's there and it does what you want it to do. So this truck, driving around, you would never know this truck had a turbo on it until you stand on the gas. I mean, it just runs and drives and cruises just like any other vehicle. And the reason I typically go turbo is they're a lot more economical for me to build. It doesn't cost me that much money to put one of these kits together, and I've done enough of them. I know how to do it the most economical way. I don't really do superchargers because belt slip, the constant loss of, it takes power to make power. You're turning the blower, and that's a parasitic loss, so your mileage is going to be worse. The turbo is just there spinning off of exhaust gases. So that's the reason I always tend to go, for my stuff, I always tend to go turbo. I mean, I've gone down the road of looking at the supercharger stuff, and the amount of money I have in this turbo setup versus the Boost District complete kit, has everything you need and nothing you don't, I could have done quite a few turbo builds for what this supercharger kit from Boost District cost. And again, the supercharger is going to be driven with the belt all the time, and I just belt slip because this is a 6-rib setup. So then once you get into belt slip, then you're trying to go 8-rib, 10-rib, cog, whatever. And I don't know. I'll see how I like it on this one. My experience with a supercharger was, probably 15, 20 years ago. And it was a small block Ford, a 393 Windsor, and I don't even remember what kind of supercharger it was, but he was constantly changing pulleys, trying to get more boost out of it. Had a bottom pulley, that's bigger than a dinner plate, and smallest top pulley he could get, and then it was belt slipping and throwing belts, whatever. So that was my experience with one. It was a centrifugal supercharger. This is Roots. So another thing is heat, because supercharger is above making heat and then going through into the lower intake, so hot air, it's not what you want. Of course, it's got air to water, but again, that temperature, I don't know if it's separated on this or integral to the, hopefully it's separated. That's probably what that front cooler's for, but I don't know. We'll see. This was kind of, the reason we went supercharger on this one is because packaging. There's not a lot of room to put the turbo, and I really didn't want to mess with turbo. We already had, headers and everything. It'd just be so much easier on this application to go supercharger. Now, this, there's plenty of room. A nice big single fits over here. You got room for the downpipe. There's just room for days in this application. Now, my Caprice is like the Trailblazer. There's no room. And, so that's why it has a twin low mount turbos that are underneath the car. And that's strictly because of packaging. The two smaller ones are easier to fit, and there's just not a lot of room on those. That's why I like the trucks. You buy a T4 log on Amazon for $200, or catch them on sale, somewhere cheaper. Bolt it on. You build your crossover from a stock manifold, and then I buy diesel downpipes or tailpipes, and then cut them up and make them into a downpipe. So $60, $70 for a diesel tailpipe, and then usually I use the factory Y pipe and just reconfigure it to get the crossover. But again, drivability, it does not affect the drivability of the truck whatsoever. So I don't understand where people, whenever I'm trying to sell one of these, or they're just talking about them in general, and they're like, well, how's it drive? Well, it drives like a stock truck, until you stand on it. So I've been doing this a long time, and that now the downside to the turbo is, it does create heat. With this sitting right here, that's a large heat source. We've got the blanket on it, we've got the downpipe wrapped. Ideally you would want a box around this so only cool air could come into the filter. Now that's more that would help. Gil Banks has proven that with the cooler, denser air, which that's science. So that would certainly help in these applications, to have a box to draw fresh, and then you can remove the headlight and then all that kind of stuff. But so again, it's a stock engine with a fairly mild camshaft, so it should get decent fuel mileage. Again, cruise fine. This is more drivable than an NA build with just a massive camshaft, because massive camshaft, is going to have, the erratic, when you come up to a stop, and just, we call them the hero camshafts, for car show applications, or that's what catches everyone's attention. They hear that chopping coming, and it just, I don't know, it just always amazes me. People are just drawn to that, but then like this, nobody would give this truck a second look, even driving down the road. Nobody gives this truck or any of the stuff I build a second look, because it's not loud, it's not flashy, it's just, I put all my attention here, the drivetrain, and I really don't care what it looks like otherwise. To an extent I do, but I want it to run good, I want it to make a lot of power, and if someone pulls up beside me, just have the power on tap to do what I need to do. I just like building them. I like the power they produce, again, and that's why I went this route, because again, probably 15 years ago now, I had a nitrous small block Ford and a Mercury Zephyr, and it ran on E98. It was carbureted, and 13.5 to 1 compression. It made 780 at the tires it had a plate and a fogger. On just a plate, it made 780 through a power glide, but you couldn't drive it anywhere. It was a race car. Take this. This is pretty close. If we put this on ethanol, we could have easily eclipsed 780 at the tires, and still drive around like a normal pickup truck. Flex fuel is certainly the way to go. I don't have the availability around here. I'm not going to go through the trouble of trying to find and test and get E85, and then you get into, you're going to need a larger fuel system, you need a way bigger pump, you need way bigger injectors, you need way bigger fuel lines. And then, the other problem we used to run into with ethanol was gumming up the lines, gumming up the injectors, having to get the injectors cleaned because of that, the black goop that would come with the ethanol. I mean, it was just, and I tried running treatment mixing. I think Lucas makes something, an additive or something you pour in there to try to help. I mean, I did that. But in my opinion, E85 is too much trouble. If we had it at every gas station around here, then that would be a different story. But there's only one gas station around here that I know of that has it, and it's probably 15, 20 miles from here. And also on ethanol, you get a lot worse fuel mileage. So, I want to build it. I want to build something where if I'm driving it around anywhere, I can pull over at any gas station, put whatever they got in it, and it's going to operate how it should. I know other guys that they will dyno the trucks on 87, get the tune dialed in on 87, and then run premium, after the dyno tune, because, that gives you an extra level of safety. But from what I've seen and what Michael at the dyno has told me and we've shared is, this is about it on pump gas. 674 is about where it's going to be. That's your limitation is the pump gas. So again, if we had ethanol in here, we could have kept going. That turbo certainly would have supported it. The fuel system, again, the fuel system, I don't remember what the duty cycle was on these. I don't remember if we looked or not. I mean, this has a bigger fuel system on it than the red truck. These have 100 pound per hour injectors, aftermarket rails, and then it's fed from the stock feed up to the back of that rail, comes up, goes over, goes back, and then up to the regulator, and then back to the tank. So this one had plenty of fuel. It's got a 450 in tank with a hydromat, and again, can you go a lot higher? Absolutely, but it's gonna be at more cost and more aggravation, in my opinion, to do the ethanol thing. Or you could do race gas, I guess. Race gas doesn't need the fuel system that the ethanol does, but it's at a higher price for the race gas, and then mixing it and having to buy it and all that thing. It still gets away from what I want. Is just a street truck. I can hop in it right now and go drive it to wherever I want to. The lockup in the transmission and the converter, I mean, it cruises well, drives like a normal stock truck until you stand on it and they're painting 11s on the road. So that's it. I just wanted to discuss that, talk about it, because like I say, every time you post one of these for sale, that's the first question everybody wants to know is, well, how drivable is it, and what, and I don't know. Again, tell me what do you think about the combination would make it unreliable or problematic or whatever. I mean, I just don't understand why people think that this would make it, undrivable or unreliable or whatever. I mean, look at the big three. I mean, now they've got a lot of the vehicles coming out now come with a turbo. I mean, you got EcoBoost. I don't know what else, but I mean, you have several factory cars that have turbos from the factory. I had a turbo Buick. I mean, and again, you could hop in and drive it anywhere, and it did fine. It drove normal, just like a normal car, but it had a turbo. So it allows you to, the turbo allows you to drive around with basically a stock engine and then have the power when you want it. So that's it for that.